And welcome back to another episode of JP and the Beanstalk.
Oh, the dynamic duo is here. The bat signal's up and on. Actually, what should we call the bean signal? Well, bean signal's pretty good.
That's not too bad.
What bean? Here's a question for you. What bean would it be that you see in the sky? Baked bean?
Yeah, gotta be.
All the beans look so alike. I mean, unless you're going to do like a green bean.
Yeah, see, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Baked is the best. It tastes the best. You get bacon in there occasionally. Because green beans, gross.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
String beans, even grosser. The ones from Jack and the Beanstalk,
Sure.
they're not real. So you gotta be like...
What a letdown that is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And that dude traded a whole cow for that, right?
I have read that story to my kids too frequently in the last couple of weeks, and here's what's really upsetting, okay? There are an alarming number of Jack and the Beanstalk adaptations out there. So I'm reading the same story, but in just slightly different versions. So it's like, here's the Mickey Mouse version.
How uncreative.
Here's the 1960s version. Here's the 1980s. Oh, look at the giant now. So it is uncreative. It's not even that good of a story, if we're being frank. The story is baloney, all right? He can't cut down that beanstalk before the giant comes down at him. He's a tiny little kid. Does he have a chainsaw? I don't think so.
Doesn't exist.
Stupid story.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, who would think that rehashing an old story over and over again after the first success would work? Hollywood. Anyways,
Wait a minute.
making it relevant. Nailed it. Bang. Anyways, yes, baked beans is the route I would go.
Okay, that's a good choice. Baked beans are
It's the only
absolutely
way.
delicious.
I don't like vegetables. Vegetables are gross, especially in the
Well, this is the summertime. Like, summertime is perfect baked bean season. Okay, so here's another question for you. I'm just full of questions today.
Yeah, that's
All right,
right.
so we established baked beans. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
What are you partnering baked beans with? What is your choice of meat that's going on with the baked beans? Is it a bratwurst? Is it a hamburger?
It's a
Is it
burger.
pork burger?
It's a burger. It's
Okay.
a burger, and it's a thick, juicy burger. Now,
Yep. Are you dipping it in the bean sauce?
no.
Ooh,
I
I
never-
encourage you to do that.
But to be
I
honest,
encourage you to do that.
To be honest, I never thought about it.
Oh, it's really
Yeah.
good.
So, to be
It
honest,
sounds really
I-
gross to say dip it in the bean sauce, but do it this way.
to be honest, that was my graduation meal:
Yes,
hamburgers, baked beans.
that's
Because
a great graduation
yes,
feast.
because my mom said no to Pizza Ranch. Because
Well-
my first choice was fried chicken from Pizza Ranch,
and
and she's like,
Pizza Ranch has great baked
"I need
beans.
you to be a little bit more reasonable."
She didn't want to spend the money, did she?
No, but hey,
No, it's not cheap.
guess what? I get it. It's
Yeah,
fair.
Yeah,
It's not just my day; it's your day too.
fair.
I did it, but
That's very big of you to have that.
But
perspective.
you
Good for
made
you.
me.
Well,
I am the success in this situation. But I wouldn't have the
really,
success.
You were originally created, but really, since what, toddlerhood, you've crafted your own path.
I've been an entertainer since I was 3. So it's shocking how I just loved the camera at 3 years old. Like my
camera has always loved you.
no, it's honestly it says a lot about me when you watch those home videos and I'm 4 or 5 and my 2-year-old sister's around
Right.
and they're trying to record her for her birthday and I take over consistently. So
I do not find that hard to believe at all.
it should not surprise anyone.
To be really blunt with you, it's like that sounds entirely on brand.
I know who I am. So and I remember this because my parents both brought it up to me this last weekend. So I digress.
That's absolutely incredible. Good on you. Well, in spite of the well-discussed lack of summer movie options, it's so great that it's summer. Baseball's in full swing. My Orioles are crushing. I got my Orioles mug here sitting with me. Your Celtics are closing out the NBA season by
Finals, baby.
another finals. Good on
2 and
ya.
3 years.
So the sports world is giving to us. The food groups are still giving to us. Baked beans are there. Hamburgers are there.
It's true.
I'm
This is
killing the
very true.
stump day by day with fire and an axe. It's awesome. It's extremely wonderful.
I thought you were going to say ass. Because that would have been really funny.
That would have been really funny. That's why you're here to call out those opportunities
Anyway,
that I miss. It's
Inside joke.
glorious.
Anyways.
It's great. It's great. So, Riles, we have been in preparation for one of our, number one movie of the summers. The other one is number two, but we won't get into that again because we don't want to peel back the bandage.
You're lucky
or
I'm
the
back.
Wounds.
You're lucky I'm back. It took a...
Gonna lie to you, I'm gonna lean into this for the rest of this summer. This is gonna be
Yeah, and then you're gonna watch them both, and you're gonna be like, "I made a mistake." It's fine.
It's gonna be just the gift that keeps on giving. But in preparation for your number one movie of the summer, my number two, we have been re-watching all of the X-Men movies, and we just got through X-Men 3: The Last Stand. So of course, we're gonna spend the bulk of today's pod discussing that, and of course, we'll wrap things up with another classic JP and the Beans top five. Count them, 5 of them. Now, before we get into that, I just want to let you know my number one movie of the summer. Okay, it's a 2-parter. Actually, this is great news. Okay, did you know it's a 4-parter? We're getting the first 2 chapters this summer. There are 4 coming out altogether.
Sounds like a giant waste of time.
To some, to others.
Why can't you just...
The pinnacle of life.
So it's not just one movie. It is 4 movies.
No, one movie, 4 chapters.
No, that's ridiculous. That's not how that works. You're not going to sit down.
Seems as though it is.
When this all comes out, you're not going to sit down in one take and be like, I watched the whole thing. What's this called? What's this crap movie called?
Horizon.
An
American Saga.
So...
Or wait, The American Saga.
Hold on. So Saga's in it?
Saga
is in the title.
Yes.
It is 4 movies then. Not one.
Excited, isn't that just like, wow, that's great. 4
The branding is terrible. That is terrible branding.
I'm so
That
excited.
is 4 movies.
Sure.
That is not one.
Like I said.
And why are they releasing it back to back? Whatever.
The gift that keeps on giving. It's glorious. All
Whatever.
right. Let's, for the sake of the pod, move into our recap of X-Men: The Last Stand. Now, per usual, I'll kind of set a little context here before we get into the nitty-gritty. So, X-Men: The Last Stand came out in 2006. All right, 18 solid years ago, almost 20. That's kind of wild to think of. Do you remember watching this movie for the first time in theaters? I have that recollection.
I don't know if I
You may not have been old enough to do that. I'm just kidding.
I'm
calling attention to your youthfulness.
I watched the original Spider-Man in theaters. So how dare you?
First of all, how dare you?
How dare you? Secondly, I don't remember.
Okay.
You want to know? To be honest,
no receipts.
But to be honest, though, I remember a majority of this movie.
Yeah.
Like as I was watching, I was like, "Oh!"
Yeah.
And I think it's because it was on FX all the time growing up.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure. Yeah,
like it was
it's definitely one of those. This is always on TV kind of movie.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember good parts of it.
Okay, so young Riley was able to watch a good chunk of this. That's great. Let's say that you did watch it in theaters. I remember that as well. So 2006, directed by Brett Ratner. Okay, who stepped in on account of Bryan Singer, the writer and director of the first 2 X-Men movies, who left the production of X-Men 3 to take on writing and directing Superman Returns, which also came out in 2006.
Yeah, that's rough.
So nobody wins, is really the moral of this story. Brett Ratner does his thing, which we'll get into. Bryan Singer abandons ship, and his career has never been the same since. So it's actually kind of incredible. A little additional context here. We talked about with X2 how we are starting to see in the wider superhero movie genre a bit of a, not even revitalization, but an enhancing of the genre. Like we're seeing better movies come out, higher caliber, greater quality. Batman Begins, as we mentioned previously, came out in 2005. That's always the example that jumps to my mind, but the original Spider-Man movie and Spider-Man 2 came out around the same amount of time as X-Men and X-Men 2. So we had some strong superhero movies coming out. Well, sadly, 2006 and 2007 were just a wee bit rough when it came to superhero movies. So X-Men Last Stand, 2006. Superman Returns also came out in 2006. Neither of them were stupendously well received. It was kind of a collective meh to both.
Is that your opinion on both as well?
it has been too long since I've seen Superman Returns to give a thorough take
Okay,
on
X-Men.
that movie. But what I remember about it was fine. It's not great. Like, I'm sure if I go, here's what I'm confident in. If I go back and rewatch that movie right now, I would go, okay, I'm never going to watch that again. Not because I would have hated it, but it's just a non-remarkable movie.
Well, it's very forgettable.
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. Spider-Man 3 came out in 2007.
I need to rewatch that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I do remember Bully McGuire very, very much so.
Yeah,
But
that was so we're kind of in this period, brief, okay, but nonetheless, period of it was just some letdowns, right? Like X-Men 3 comes in with all this hype, doesn't live up to it. Superman Returns tries to build up hype. Yeah. Spider-Man 3, the most anticipated superhero movie up to that point.
true.
Has its moments, but in a lot of ways is very relatable when it comes to X-Men 3. So point is, this movie lives in a swing and a miss category.
Is this
It isn't
so?
happening.
Is it a swing and a miss for you?
This movie?
Yes.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
It is. I have a lot of gripes with this movie.
Okay.
It's not the worst superhero movie you'll ever see by any stretch of the imagination. But when it comes to the buildup that we had from the first X-Men, and in particular the second X-Men movie, this was too bad. I remember not hating it when I saw it in theaters. Okay, I remember seeing it in theaters and going, all right, pretty entertaining. So the other weird thing for me with movies, and this is true for all of us, so it's not necessarily weird, but it really depends on when you see the movie and how you're going to receive it, right? Because again, I watched this movie in theaters in 2006 and I'm going, all right, not bad. You know what? I enjoyed that. I watch it again now and I'm going, I have notes. I have a lot of notes. So there's your context as far as the world of superhero movies heading into this bad boy. Anything else you want to add on that front before we run through the cast real quick?
No.
Okay. So let's buzz through the cast. Patrick Stewart's back.
Yep.
Professor Xavier. So is Ian McKellen as Magneto, Hugh Jackman as Wolverine, Famke Janssen as Jean Grey, James Marsden as Cyclops, Anna Paquin as Rogue, Halle Berry as Storm, Rebecca Ramsey as Mystique, Aaron Stanford as Pyro, Sean Ashmore as Iceman, and I always forget someone from the previous movie. Sorry, this time it was Daniel Cudmore as Colossus. Sorry, Dan, my bad. Talk to Sean. You guys can hash it out together. Also, Alan Cumming as Kurt Wagner. Wait, oh, I'm sorry. No, Nightcrawler wasn't in this movie.
That was a bummer.
That was dumb.
They decided to replace one blue guy for another blue guy.
You can have more than one blue guy.
I agree.
It's
I agree.
ridiculous.
But I understand why they did it. Kind of, not really.
Yeah, same. The new to the crew, Ellen Page. Now, first Elliot Page, okay, as Kitty Pryde. Ben Foster as Warren Worthington III, a.k.a. Angel. Vinnie Jones as Kane Marco, a.k.a. Juggernaut. Dania Ramirez as Callisto. It's actually a real X-Men character. I looked it up.
Yep, correct.
Yep.
Leader of the Morlocks.
Yeah. And Cameron Bright as Jimmy, a.k.a. Leash.
Also a real character.
Also a real
Do you see what
character.
he looks like in the comics?
Oh, totally different.
Nothing like
Nothing
this.
like they show him in the movie.
But again, I understand why they did this.
Oh, yeah. He actually, so real quick, the character of Leech in the Fantastic Four comics run that I spent a good part of last year reading through, written by Jonathan Hickman, Leech has a not small part to play in that comics run because Reed Richards has Leech be the roommate of his son Franklin Richards, because Franklin Richards' power set is just absolutely astronomically godlike, off the scales. And so Reed has Leech stay in the same room in the Baxter building as Franklin to try and just naturally and kind of organically throttle down the power a little bit so he doesn't just accidentally, obviously not intentionally, but accidentally open up a wormhole and destroy the entire building and city.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So Leech, good on you.
You also Yep, you did. Kelsey Grammer as Beast.
You're right. Thank you. Oh my gosh, how did I not
A
have
very
new
prominent and
Wow.
arguably, I will also throw this out here,
I'm gonna add that to the document right now. I'm just gonna
Perfect
say,
casting.
totally agree.
That is the best casting you could have done for Beast.
Yeah, totally agree.
So
Totally agree.
we were robbed of more of that.
So let's get into it, and let's start with the positives.
Hey,
Riles.
you know what? I mean, this is going to be a positive. We're going to start off with a hot take. X-Men: The Last Stand is better than the first movie. It goes X2,
Yep.
Last Stand, X-Men, and I genuinely think this movie's great.
Okay.
Not as good as X2.
Yep.
But it's close.
Fascinating. Wow, this is going to be fun. Okay.
So,
I'm not going to die on any kind of a hill as far as comparing, X3 to the first X-Men movie. The first X-Men movie is so dated that I totally can understand why someone reached that conclusion. I am glad that you feel vastly more positive towards this movie than I do, so I'm not going to seek to squash that. We're just going to express our views like gentlemen, you idiot.
okay.
Hashtag
remember how we
Rising
started
Forever.
this podcast? Yeah, we'll just remember that. We'll remember who's actually right. Okay.
All right, so hit me with your positives. Kelsey Grammer, totally agree.
Kelsey Grammer is a game changer for this.
He's
He's perfect, and he kind of implies that he's been in X-Men before, but went off to do other things.
Right?
He's fantastic. Let's see here.
His voice, I mean, Kelsey Grammer is blessed with such a rich, unique voice, right? I mean, it's a reason he played a character on a recurring television sitcom whose vocation was that of a radio host. It's like, well, yeah, you got that kind of a voice, you should be talking into a microphone on a regular basis.
Correct.
He is not someone that I would have, even now, the character of Beast in this movie is perfect. And I still wouldn't say you should cast Kelsey Grammer in that role, just because I can't envision it. But I'm totally wrong. He's great. It's really great.
To me, it makes too much sense.
Mm-hmm.
For me. But
tell me more about
anyways.
that.
Well,
like coming from the animated series that you've watched in particular?
No, but I think of it like, I mean, he from the TV show side of things in his show, which I can't think of the name of right now.
Frasier.
Yes. So in Frasier, that was kind of his thing.
Sure.
Like this smart genius guy, and it was like, I've never seen it. Okay, I know what it is
before
though.
my time, and therefore before your time.
So, like that fits Beast really well. Isn't that smart? Like, and the Stars and Garters line just perfect, right? The dude was quoting Winston Churchill in a fight. That's Beast. And it's perfect, and that guy's just used to all that stuff.
Sure.
So it just fits really, really well.
Yep.
So that's where I'm coming from. Like, the guy knows how to be smart. If he isn't,
knows
or
come
isn't.
across.
Right.
Come across.
I don't know if he's
guy.
actually how smart he is in real life.
Probably very stupid.
But, like, he just has this intellectual gravitas to him already. Now, was he doing any of the stunts? Probably not. But I'm also excited the fact that that is the Beast we got for at the end of the Marvels.
Mm-hmm.
Now, more CGI, and to be honest, that's kind of how it should be at this point.
Sure.
Let Beast be CGI.
Yep.
Easier to handle.
Yep.
But Kelsey Grammer, all he has to do is voice it.
Still has the great voice.
That's what he has to do. You don't have to have him do any stunts. Have other people do that.
Yeah.
But I think his voice is great.
And I tell you what, like the voice is perfect. The size, like the scale of the character is great. And here's what's so perfect about his appearance in this movie is that he's a genuine, like when you think of, you're going to call him Beast, it makes sense. He's freaking huge. Like he's bigger than everybody. And yet somehow his voice encapsulates both intellect and there's some like gentleness in there.
Yes.
And yet there's enough body to it where you're going, yeah, you could throw some blows.
Yeah, for sure.
Right? It's not, that's just unique.
And a character like that can come off as ridiculous.
Yeah.
And some of them do.
Yep.
Don't get me wrong in this movie. There are some issues. Okay.
Right.
We'll get into that later.
Yep.
Beast is not one of those.
Totally
the
agree.
practical effects for
Totally
Beast
agree.
worked really, really well for this movie.
Yep. One of my favorite parts of the movie is his entrance into the fight Like,
Oh yeah.
I can't even, I'm trying to think of how I can even describe the pose, but he's got like one leg up. His arms are just so, I don't know how to describe it at all. It's like, it's almost like a Spider-Man pose. Like when Spidey's swinging and yet he's doing it. So the acrobatic nature of his fighting style, freaking terrific.
And I love his relationship with Wolverine. As brief as it is perfect.
Yes.
That is exactly what I wanted.
Right.
And the fact that these three like come together after Xavier dies and they like are the leadership roles are forced on all three of them.
Yep.
Because they lose Scott, who was their leader, and they lose Professor X, and you could
Yep.
probably make the argument that Jean Grey was also one of the leadership
role
roles.
there. You bet.
And she went to the other side.
Whoops.
Yes. So these three don't, I mean, Professor X was already kind of considering Storm for the role of like headmaster,
Right,
but
right.
Wolverine's not a leader by any means. And Beast
Right.
is like a vet, but he's not necessarily a leader either.
Mhm.
But
Yep.
I mean, that final fight is fantastic.
Mhm.
Everybody shines in it.
Mhm.
Like, great. The fire and ice, they finally pays off.
Right.
Correct.
Great.
The plan to take Magneto out of action,
Mhm.
also great.
Mhm.
And I think the end of the movie, and I think this is what hurts that movie,
Mm.
is they set it up for another movie.
Sure.
And instead of going into the future, they go into the past.
Mhm.
And that's where I'm like,
Why?
why? Because they pretty much just implied that the mutant, like, cure wasn't actually a cure. It was more of
Correct.
a neutralizer of sorts, which also tracks with the kid's powers. Like,
Yep.
but
Right. It's temporary. It's not a permanent.
I digress.
Yeah. No, Beast. Yeah. To get us back on the topic at hand, Beast is the strongest, in my opinion, the strongest character in the movie as far as who you want to see more of, who you enjoy when he's on the screen. He's absolutely fantastic.
Agreed. And it also goes to show you from the beginning of the first movie to now the third movie,
Mhm.
where you go from and the humans, don't get me wrong, they still in this are like fighting against mutants in a way. But at the same
Mhm.
time, they have appointed a mutant
Mhm.
as like this leading body of mutant. He's pretty much the head of mutant affairs,
Right.
right? So for them to trust a mutant at a government level is just goes to show you like how
Progress has been made.
right,
Yeah.
and it's still being made progress.
Yeah. See, and I like that, and at the same time, I go, well, the timeline of the movie just doesn't make sense because if X2 is to be believed, there's just no mention of Hank McCoy, right? There's this strong suspicion towards mutants.
He was on the news.
You're right. You're right. No, you're right. But he should have been, there should have been some kind of a more tangible, well, we've got like just even a mention of him by Professor Xavier. Like, well, listen, Hank McCoy is doing what he can in Washington. This is a rough patch right now in terms of relations between humans and mutants. This is a small gripe, okay? This is not a gripe with a capital G. This is a lowercase g. Because I like and prefer having Hank McCoy in the role that he's in at the beginning of this movie. It's like that all makes a lot of sense.
But I would also make the argument that that role might not be created until after Stryker does all his
Totally
stuff.
agree.
And
Yeah.
so they're like, you know what? Because it is a
What I'm
different
saying is there should have
president.
been more time that passed. That's really what I'm getting at. Is it feels like it's a few months since Jimmy died in the lake. And it's
I
like,
see what you're saying.
shouldn't we have been years? And maybe it is. They just never.
Yeah.
It's not made clear.
No, because in the beginning of the movie,
It's got to be years because it's a different president. It's just not explicitly stated.
yeah,
So
because
yeah,
they do
it's
say
fair.
like a couple years in the future, but they don't like settle on the
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, very, very true. Okay, other positives. Let's stay on the positive note for you.
Positives.
What do you think? Here's a question that I had. I'm still trying to like figure out how I feel about this. A lot of this movie has Wolverine and Storm as a leadership tandem, right? Never romantically involved, but just partnered up. I couldn't decide if it worked or didn't work. I felt very neutral about their partnership.
For me, it works.
Yeah.
Because you look at the reason why Cyclops and Wolverine's relationship works a lot, and it's because Cyclops is very much by the book.
Yep.
And Wolverine is, I'm going to do it my way.
Mm-hmm.
And he's still doing that with Storm, and Storm is trying to come into this leadership role and kind of follow the rules.
Right.
And she kind of reins him back a little bit, and she's like, you got to remember, these are kids. Like, these are not...
Yep.
Like, he was not taking that danger room scenario seriously at all.
New.
And he's like, I'll just take care of it. And she's like,
we'll just win.
they're not gonna survive out there.
Right. They're not learning anything. Like, who cares?
So, like, she genuinely puts up with his shit, but she also knows that in the end of it, he's reliable.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why it works. Because even towards that end there, when they're coming up with a plan to take Magneto, it's him, her, and Beast. They just look at them, like the shots or whatever.
Yep.
They don't even say a word. They're all on the same page. So for me, I think they've been around each other enough to where they kind of understand who each other is.
Right.
And I think at that point, she's like, okay, go ahead and leave. But she knows he just needs to go do that and see for himself again. And
sure. She has a better understanding, or maybe even a greater willingness to just
let him breathe.
Let him extend the leash a little bit.
And if she doesn't, they don't find out where they're going.
Yep. Yeah.
And they could have been too late.
Yeah. I think it should work. I'm not sure they were given enough time for it to be as effective as it could have been. Because Storm had a great arc in X2 where she is like, she's feeling real bitter towards the humans, and she has a lot of mistrust towards humanity. And I felt like that got cut off somewhat in this movie. I would have liked to have seen more of that. I feel like that was part of her character that Wolverine could have helped draw out and develop a little bit further. Because Wolverine has his own reasons to distrust certain humans, but in spite of his rough, exterior, he still chooses to trust pretty often.
But she does kind of do that, though, because when she's talking to Professor X, she's like, why are we hiding? People are okay with us at this point. So what's the point? He's like, safety reasons and whatever. And I think if she doesn't accept that at that point in time, I don't think she takes on that, like, hey, we're going to keep the school open kind of vibe. So.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. Yeah. Okay. Moving on from Beast, the Pyro versus Iceman duel. A lot of fun.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
You have to have that.
I wish we would have seen Iceman in full ice mode more often, because that was awesome. The headbutt was amazing. So, and it goes
just annihilates like the two, I'm just going to call them gauntlets or triggers for the flames.
Right.
And then the headbutt to put him down.
Yeah, it's pretty. And it just goes to show, like, Iceman is stronger than this guy by a mile. Like, he might have fire, but like he can't produce it himself. Iceman can just keep going and going and going, as far as we know.
Right.
So yeah,
do your stuff. Iceman.
Iceman's one of my favorite X-Men characters all time.
Yep.
To see him have his moment and shine and like kind of get Pyro back for their time as kids.
Yeah.
Great. Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I think this movie also does a good job still with the Professor X Magneto relationship as well. Like,
that's always a strong point, isn't it?
Right. And they nail it again though here, because when Pyro's talking shit about Xavier, like, Magneto's like, we're not having any of that. He's like, he's done so much for us.
Yeah.
So like, for them to still have this like mutual,
the fact that they ended as opponents, there's still a mutual respect.
They were still friends.
Yeah.
They just have very different ways of doing things. Because I think he was just as devastated to lose Charles at the end there.
Right.
Just like the X-Men were.
Yep.
So, and it was probably worse for him because he watched him die. So, but yeah, I've always been impressed with that. I think Magneto, dude, the guy is strong. And I don't think he had a bad showing in this franchise, period. They always nailed Magneto. Like, we talk about Fassbender nailing Magneto all the time. give Ian McKellen his props
Oh
too,
my.
because he was fantastic.
Yep.
So
Yeah, Ian McKellen, two different eras of the character in terms of you're getting the late in life Magneto with Ian McKellen, you're getting the more in his prime years with Michael Fassbender, and in both cases they're outstanding. But Ian McKellen, again, just has that unique quality. So much of it is with his voice of this is a dude that commands attention and respect. Doesn't mean you should do what he says, but whenever he speaks, it's compelling, it's engaging.
the way he's just so nonchalant at throwing those first people out.
Jeez.
He's like,
Yeah.
nope, you're not going. Let the pawns do what they're supposed to do. And you're like, oh.
Hope I'm not a pawn.
It's like, I thought you liked everybody because they're mutants. They're better. And it's like,
Right. What?
it's so included there, pal.
Yeah. He shifts the goalposts quite a bit because I remember watching that scene and thinking, well, dude, you've got like a whole metal bridge behind you that you could use, right? You've got cars that he eventually uses. He has plenty of metal to deploy. So the fact that the soldiers don't have metal weapons is actually just kind of like laughable. It's like, guys, there's a lot of other metal out there. Just because your guns aren't metal doesn't mean this is going to be, but I digress.
I agree.
But my point is, where I'm going with this is Magneto is just, as you said, nonchalant about just let them go. Let them have their fun. Let them go fight for a little bit. Because he could have just taken all that metal and whooped immediately if he wanted to.
It was almost a game to him because
Yes.
even after that,
Yes.
like, he goes to like take the gun and he's like, oh, they're plastic. They're learning. And then
right, he's not actually like devastated. Like, guys, what do we do? He's like,
And then he
look,
just
I
has-
finally figured it out.
and then he just has somebody else take care of business.
Mhm.
It's just so
Mhm.
funny to me because he's like, oh, he's gonna take his sweet time, which
Right. Not in a hurry.
I think is part of his strategy at the end of it, right? I mean, because he sacrifices multiple man
Right.
off the board immediately.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah,
Yeah. Magneto's so doggone solid. Just so good. And it's making me think of like Days of Future Past, and I wish there could be even more of him. But when we get him in Days of Future Past, it's so good again. Like
Fassbender's so good.
Fassbender's good, but Ian McKellen is so good in that
Oh,
too.
they're
It's
both so good.
he just picks up right where he left off.
And he never died.
Yeah.
He stayed alive the whole time. They took his powers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
They put him in a plastic box a couple of times, but he never died.
No, never died. Tell you what, positive for me is do whatever it takes to get Hugh Jackman shirtless. Jean Grey's just ripping him apart. The clothes are coming off, and it's like, this is a good movie. Look at Hugh go.
Which, by the way, talk about painful. Like, I was just reading the other day,
Gosh.
because I guess it just never registered to me until recently. Like, he feels all that.
Right?
Like, that
Right.
would be awful.
And you see, like, that's one of the, maybe the coolest CGI shot in the movie is you see glimpses of his adamantium skeleton.
Oh, that's so badass.
That's
So
It's
badass.
like, no, we're not just seeing the red flesh that we're used to seeing when he gets hit by a bullet or, cut by a knife. It's, no, you're seeing down to the bone. That's pretty wild.
Dude, Wolverine. Well, because I was also thinking that, and I was also thinking, dude, if he got stabbed with one of those syringes, he would die immediately.
True.
Because the adamantium on his bones would just kill him.
Yep, you're dead.
The weight and the poison.
He's constantly healing.
Correct. He'd die.
Constantly.
He would die immediately.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yep.
crazy.
That's a great point. It's like,
But,
this
like-
would actually kill him.
Yeah, for him to like walk up there, just taking shots after shots, just to stab her right through the chest. You're like, oh, that's tough, pal.
Yeah. About as tough as it gets. Someone he loves.
Yeah.
To boot, not just hey, go kill the bad guy. It's like, no, actually kill someone that you have very strong feelings for.
Right.
That's a bit tough.
And we talked about this, I think, maybe last pod or just in person. I can't remember. Watching this movie all the way through and dealing with, like, and watching the animated series deal with the Phoenix, I think this was well done.
Okay.
Because instead of making it like this alien body, it's like,
Right.
hey, she's actually super strong and super powerful.
Yeah.
But Professor X is like, I had to put barriers on it
Right.
because of that strength, she developed a dual personality. And if that personality comes out, we might all die.
Yeah.
Like, we might all be dead.
Yeah.
Because I have no idea how to control this.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I can actually get behind this.
So much. No question. Totally agree.
Because that persona is still the same in the comics. Because he makes the statement like, he's like, oh yeah, this goes off of like just pure joy and emotion.
Mhm.
And there's not really the humanity side of it
Yep.
when she goes into that
It's just
form.
unhinged.
Correct. There's no like,
There's no boundaries there.
correct, which is her in Dark Phoenix form, just with an alien embodied inside of her,
Right.
strengthening her instead. So I think this worked for this universe at this point in time.
I totally agree. And I would say not only does it work for this movie in this universe, well, why not just use that as your template moving forward if you're going to do the Dark Phoenix thing? Like, it doesn't need to be an alien. It makes, to me, it makes a lot more sense. It's a lot more relatable when it's hey, there's this power set that's within her that if that is unleashed, comes partnered with this additional personality that is really destructive.
Yeah.
A lot more
See,
sense.
and I think for the 616, it's too late. Personally, I think it's too deep. I think you'd have to do it like Ultimate Universe or something like that. I think it'd be just because of how much they've done with the Phoenix, even outside of that. It's actually really interesting you bringing that up because I do find that more. So I'm trying to think of like making it more reasonable, and it's like it's either that or you make one of her.
The comics are just kind of done.
It's
as
either
far as
that-
goes.
right.
I'm thinking more specifically with the movie.
Right, and it's either
Right.
that or you make like one parent an alien,
Mm.
and the mother is the Phoenix. You know what I mean? Like there's some other like I don't know. I think it's very hard to adapt that specific storyline into a live action movie.
Yep.
And make it like grounded in some sense. It won't be.
Yeah, I agree. What I wish is that with the character of Jean, they show it at times. Probably one of my biggest overall frustrations with this movie, Riley, is that it's too short. Like it needs another half hour. It's about an hour and 45 minutes, and by too short, I mean this is an instance where with the character of Jean, it's like, hey, give us more time with her so that we can see more of that inner turmoil that she's having. We see glimpses of it where she, like the rational side of her is battling against this raging power set.
Yep.
Right. And that little tease was really compelling to me. It's like, oh, give us more of that. Like, let's see times where she actually has it corralled. She has it under control. And then she loses the control. I would have really enjoyed more of that.
I can agree with that. Like
Yeah.
just one fight scene where she's with the X-Men.
Sure.
She thinks she's back.
Yeah.
And that's when I don't know.
Well, because in that last fight scene, I had forgotten about this until we just rewatched it. But the battle is, for all intents and purposes, over. Jean's not wrecking things until the reinforcements arrive, right, from the U.S. Army, and then they just unleash their absolute barrage, and all of a sudden Jean taps into that power set to stop all of the darts from coming at her. And as soon as she taps into that power set, it's, oh, here comes the personality, and now the snowball's rolling downhill and we've got an avalanche on our hands. That made a lot of sense. Like, that was compelling. So just kind of that dynamic of, hey, we're good, we're under control. It's kind of like a Hulk, really.
Right,
you know, or the classic idea of, oh, don't make the Hulk angry. It's that sort of dynamic, just in a Jean Grey.
Yeah. Instead, the
persona
Phoenix tapped
with the
in
Phoenix.
to save herself from
Yeah.
losing her powers is essentially what happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Or having Jean, what if she is saving all the mutants? She saved them, but in order to do that, she's had to tap into that power, and so she saves them, and then, no, boy, we're out of control again.
Yeah.
And now it's quickly turned into crap. She's going to destroy all of us. Kind of what they did. I just would have liked to have seen it fleshed out further.
I can get behind that.
Yeah. Yeah. What other positives did you have from this one?
Oh, I thought we were already in negative town.
We can go there. We can go there.
I don't think I have anything else that I want to talk about.
Yeah. My truly, I'm glad that you've got all those positives. My biggest beef, aside from the length, and it's like, can we have some more time, please? It just felt rushed. Well, there's too many characters that are just gonna get done dirty.
Yep.
In this movie.
Yep.
For me to like be able to fully embrace it. Like Cyclops. Holy smokes. Like
if you're a
dirtiest.
Cyclops fan, this trilogy's not for you.
Oh my
No.
gosh.
That's the one thing I can't figure out, especially with the James Marsden casting. Because like
he's solid.
Arguably at that time, he's up there.
Yep.
Probably. Like
he's well known, he's well established.
Can we acknowledge out of this movie, like not counting a couple of these people, everyone else is pretty average looking. It's just something that I noticed. There's a lot of average looking people. Okay, now I digress. See, you're thinking about it. Because you're like, okay, I know the couple, like, really attractive ones, right? Cyclops is one, Halle Berry is the other one that you immediately jump to.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying. Like, James Marsden was picked to just be like...
Right. Look good.
By the way, great.
Good, Jimmy.
Yep, and great casting choice. I see him as Cyclops. I enjoyed the moments that we got with him in the first two movies.
Correct.
Yes.
And he's capable. Like, I've seen him in other things. He's capable. The dude has range. Like, he can lighten it up, but he plays the role of Scott Summers so well. But he's not tapping into a certain side of him as the actor that isn't appropriate for the role. He nailed it.
I know. And here's what bugged me, is that Cyclops just couldn't get over Jean. Because in the comics, that boy got over her real quick. Real quick.
True.
It was not very long before he's like,
bummer. Next.
Hey, Emma, how are you? And it's like, whoa, dude. Like, she just died.
The body's not even cold yet.
Seriously, he moves that quick, and you're like, oh, you're just as bad as Wolverine.
What we need is the happy medium. We need somewhere between the can't get over her and got over her within minutes. It's like, let's find the balance. Let's have a respectful mourning period, then open your heart back up again.
See, he's arguably worse than Wolverine, because I don't think Wolverine's ever been a cheater.
Ooh.
You know what I mean? I don't think Wolverine's ever cheated. Has he been around the block? Yeah, he's got kids with a bunch of different people. But my point is...
What's the little movies from?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Also, in his defense...
your claws, sir.
His defense, he's been around for like 300 years, too, so, you know.
Okay. That's just take little time for the wild oats to be sown.
Anywho, I digress. Yes, Cyclops gets done dirty, I think, in this entire trilogy, to be honest. It's not just this movie. And so I don't know if he was just personally done playing Scott, or if the script... He just was like, yeah, just kill me. Like, I don't know how that works. You know what I mean?
I would love
that. That sounds rough.
No,
but
I would love to know. What bamboozles me is when Wolverine and Storm arrive at the lake, okay? And they discover Jean. Before they discover Jean, hey, look, there's Cyclops shades just floating in midair. Nobody in that moment asks, I wonder where Scotty is. You might have seen Scott. Scott, where are you, bud? It's not until they get back to the mansion that they even mention him. It's like, guys, what if Scott? Anybody?
To me,
that is just so poorly handled. It's like, come on.
Right. To me, it's probably implied that they searched everywhere because they found Jean and like, hey, we need to get her back.
Sure.
We can't find Scott.
Yeah.
And then hopefully when she wakes up, she'll give us answers. Because as soon as she does wake up and Wolverine realizes, oh, this is not the Jean that I know, that's the first thing he said. Where's Scott? And he's like, oh, this motherfucker is dead. He is gone.
Yeah.
By the way, just consumed. Did she eat him, essentially?
I think so, which is super terrifying.
By the way, that girl was Thanos snapping before that was even a thing.
Correct.
That was
correct.
Huff.
Yeesh.
So,
yeesh.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, though. But yeah, no, Scott gets done dirty.
Yeah. He does. It's just a bummer. I think, and we won't spend a ton of time on all of these, but Mystique gets done dirty. Now, I'll also say we've had plenty of Mystique. We don't need a ton of Mystique.
Correct.
In the third movie. So I'm not bothered by it. It's just have less of her. You don't need to like depower her.
See, but I think it works because it furthers Magneto's character to the sense where he only liked her right. He only liked her for her powers and what she was able to do. Mm-hmm. He did not care about relationships.
That part of it's effective.
So for me, I think it had to be her regardless taking that bullet because she spent so much time with him in the first two, and she's the only one that actually had somewhat of a character in those two movies.
What I don't like is, you're absolutely right. That's a great point on how it continues to develop the Magneto character. What Mystique should have done, she's going to go to the humans. She's going to go to the X-Men and say, hey, what help do you need? I can't like do the same things, but I can give you intel. It's not taking that to the U.S. Army. Like, her disdain for humanity runs so deep. That part I found pretty unbelievable. Because if she really wants to take Magneto down, she's not trusting in the U.S. Army anyway, right? She knows they can't stop him and Jean. She's going to go to the X-Men.
But the president also says, hell hath no fury than a woman scorned. And you know what? I'm like...
But you know what? Hank McCoy could have said that line, and he would have said it better.
Fair.
He would have said it better.
That's fair. Either way, though, like... She's going to somebody.
Yes. No, agreed. She is. She should turn. It's just keep turning. Don't stop at the humans. Keep going over to the X-Men. That would have been pretty compelling to see, oh, now Mystique is on the X-Men side. Interesting.
But can't you also see her character just being like, going from one polar opposite to just being like, nope, humans 100%, screw all of them. So I can see that too. Okay. I can see the flip-flop real quick.
Fair enough.
That's just me, though. I don't know.
That's good. Rogue. They just never got Rogue right.
See?
Right? They never, like, fully unleashed her. I don't mind the tension she's feeling at all.
Correct.
In this movie. That's works.
Solid.
I just wish she would have had more time. Like, what she is battling with makes all the sense in the world. Because she has, out of all the X-Men characters that we've been introduced to in these movies, she has just the toughest power set to live with, right? It's like, this is negative in almost every shot because it limits all of the interaction that she can have with other people. And how do you turn it into a positive? Like, where can she actually utilize it? This is one of the few, like, really clever moments in the movie when they're in the, what's the room called where they're doing the
danger room?
Thank you. When they're in the danger room and she and Colossus intentionally make contact so that she will absorb his metal abilities when they're encountering the debris that's falling from the explosion so that she doesn't get hurt, right? Like, that's great. You turn it into a positive in that instance. But it's a really difficult skill set to work with.
I think we're Rogue. This is not her fault. This is comics' fault.
Yep.
And she's so heavily connected to Carol Danvers, where you need to figure out a way where she has her power set that she just has without Carol Danvers. Finding somebody else where she's
got the ability to fly. Does she have the ability to like shoot projectiles as well?
No.
Okay.
It's just super strength, super flight, etc. So you could have picked a plethora of mutants. You could have just introduced one, kind of built them up a little bit, and then she just zaps them real good. I think that was a hindrance, because I think if she has that, she probably definitely doesn't get the cure. And because that's the only thing that bothered me is that she actually went through with it.
Right.
So, because in my opinion, she should have came back for that final fight, and they're like, oh my gosh, back up. And, like, she just hits Juggernaut. That would have been great. Juggernaut would have been perfect. Or somebody else like that, you know?
Yeah.
But I digress.
Yeah. No, that's good. The last one that for me got done dirty a little bit here. This isn't the dirtiest, but it's still, there's still some smudginess. Professor Xavier. I have no problem with him dying. I don't like him dying in the middle of the movie. I wish it would have been later in the movie.
I was okay with it.
Yeah. I just didn't care for it. I just thought he got dunked on way too easy.
It needed to be Gene for sure.
Yeah, it's great that it's Gene. I wish it would have been part of the ending battle scene, and I wish it would have just been more creative. Like, it turned into this kind of like staring contest. I wish it would have been hey, let's actually see inside their minds as they're wrestling with each other
Makes
a little
sense.
bit there, as opposed to intense staring contest music, and then he disintegrates. It's a tough way to go. That's
Especially the way-
super dead.
Especially
Like,
the
he's
way he
gone.
just looks at Wolverine and smiles and just dies. It's like, that's
That's
horrifying.
worse.
Don't smile.
Right? That's worse.
But he's like,
I'm out.
yeah. Compared to like when Jean dies, she does smile at the end when she gets stabbed, but it's more out of relief because she
Yeah.
knows she's not going to hurt anybody
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah, no question. No question. That's one that was one of my, again, kind of a smaller beef. I get it that it makes sense that you need to take Xavier off the board. Fair enough. Like, have him leave the legacy, let others take it on. And maybe here's the thing. Maybe I'm not as bothered by that. Here's a fascinating what if. What if like Scott hadn't died earlier? Maybe I'm more okay with Xavier dying when he does.
I think
I think that might change things. for
see,
me.
and I think you keep Xavier dead where he's at,
Yep.
and then I think you have Scott be the one to die in that final battle.
Mm. Mhm.
Because then you still have Scott
Mhm.
fleshing out, and
There you
then
go. Sure.
he dies
Sure.
before that,
Yep.
establishing like Jean's gone,
Yep.
right? Because if you have
Yep.
her kill him
Yep.
at that point,
Right.
like have those two go at it.
Yep.
While everybody else is going solo fighting,
There you go.
have him go
Yeah.
after, have those two go after it.
Right.
He's like, I don't want to hurt you.
Yep.
She kills him off the board. That's Wolverine's wake up call. Like, I need to kill her.
Yep.
That's 100%. I have to do
Yeah.
this.
Or like Scott and Wolverine are like coming at Jean at the same time, right? And then Jean just annihilates Scott, and Wolverine's going, okay, she's got to die.
Yeah.
Just like you see.
Thing like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just because I think
Mm-hmm.
you give justice to Scott's character. You still kill him off, but
Yeah.
yet he still has all of this time in the movie.
And we never really got to see the guy flex with his
Yeah.
power
And
set.
maybe and maybe he like gets his moment where
Yes.
he gets over the grief. She's back. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yep, I agree. And listen, when it's that significant of a character, you can't do an off-screen death
No, I agree.
like they did, where it's just, no, he's just gone. It's just awkward at best.
No, Cyclops needs justice.
Yep.
And I know they bring young Scott back for like the younger
Yeah.
movies, so I haven't like fully seen those.
Yep.
So
Yeah, we'll get into those. Just this version of Scott that was tough for his sake. What'd you think of the Juggernaut in this one?
no, that was my biggest pet peeve
Yeah.
by a mile and a half.
Fascinating.
Juggernaut got done super well in Deadpool 2.
Mhm.
That's what I want from Juggernaut.
Mhm.
Like the dome.
Yep.
This is where this movie struggles, and it was the same gripes that I had with the first X-Men movie, in the sense of they do justice by having these characters on there,
Yeah.
but then they don't take the opportunity to flesh them out,
Mhm.
and they don't
Correct.
have these like set in stone relationships. Like
Yeah.
Cain Marco is Professor Xavier's half brother.
Mhm.
Okay, now
Mhm.
they didn't go the magical route. I understand. So he's a mutant in this.
Great.
That get up is terrible.
Mhm.
That whole
Mhm.
beast, you knocked it out of the park. Juggernaut, awful.
Isn't that weird?
So
How
bad.
do you get Beast so right and get Juggernaut so wrong?
And I think part of it is that Juggernaut is just such a naturally big
Yep.
character.
Yep.
And so it's harder to like obviously they got a big dude for it, right?
Yep.
The guy's
Yep.
perfect
Right.
size, perfect like gruffness to it.
Yep.
But like this dude is a hulking guy. And to have this like his helmet doesn't work here. Because his natural helmet covers up to his shoulders,
Right.
right?
Right.
So he has a ton more protection.
Like
Like
to the freaking traps.
so for me, Juggernaut gets done super dirty in this movie. Super dirty.
Mhm.
Right? Pyro still gets his moments. They did great with him. You can make the argument for Multiple Man. Being on the Brotherhood of Mutants side when he's kind of like X Factor.
Mm-hmm.
So to have him there, because they kind of just used him for his power more than anything, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you don't get to see him really get fleshed out or anything happen with him.
yeah, isn't that just that's just such a bummer that we were singing the praises, and rightfully so, of X2 with how well they executed the ensemble task, right? Where you've got a lot of characters that you need to give time to, that you need to develop, and they did it so well in that movie. In this movie, it's just not nearly at the same level.
Right. And you can make that argument with Colossus even.
Yes.
Like Colossus is there,
Yes.
don't get me
Right.
wrong, which I'm glad he's there. I'm glad he's present, right? But he's not getting
He's not given anything to do.
Deadpool.
Anything.
Deadpool nailed Colossus.
Mm-hmm.
God bless Ryan Reynolds.
Mhm.
Okay, that is my Colossus. That is the Colossus that needs to show up every time we get Colossus.
What blows me away is you don't even get Colossus just banging fools in the final fight scene of this movie.
You also, in the Deadpool movie, never see him in human form.
Correct.
Never.
Correct.
Why? Because no one cares about his human form. Okay? I'll say it now.
Right.
I don't want to see
Right.
him like that. I want to see him get needled shot at him and he just be in full titanium mode and they just bounce off of him.
Well, and you brought up Deadpool 2. It's great when you get Colossus versus Juggernaut in that movie. Could have had it in this movie. It's right there. It's right there.
It's perfect. They are a good
The
match.
unstoppable force against the immovable object.
It's a great,
Tale as old as time. Just do it.
especially when you find out Colossus becomes the Juggernaut for a little bit
Mm-hmm.
in the comics. But like before that even though, yeah. That's just a no-brainer. You see those two and you're like, that should be the 1v1. But instead they send him after the kid and he gets knocked out by a wall. And also, I will say, we don't get to see Kitty Pryde's powers that much.
Mhm.
I love Kitty in the comics.
Mhm.
She's one of the best X-Men, personally.
Yep.
And I think you mentioned it in your notes,
Right.
where it's like, you don't really get to see her pull those off in a fight.
No. Like,
She's very defensive with her powers in this movie.
right. And she could be extraordinarily offensive.
She could
Like,
be both.
Yeah, 100% could be both. Because the closest comp that I can think of that I've seen in a movie somewhat recently is with Vision, right? And his phasing abilities. That's what she is. That's what she has. And so she could be utilizing that in such clever ways. And that's one of my frustrations with different action sets in this movie is where's the creativity here? Like you have X2 and the scene where Magneto pulls the metal out of the guard, turns it into these three little like ball bearing sized literal balls is so much more compelling to me than watching him lift up the Golden Gate Bridge and turn it into a bridge again.
See, I will argue with that
Okay.
because that is a giant piece of metal. Like,
Oh yeah,
the amount of concentration it
it's
takes.
a flex. I'm just saying it's not as clever, right? Like
I see what you're
he
saying.
took a bridge and he used it as a bridge. Yep, that works. But to like draw the metal out of a human body and then you have these three ball bearings and then you like flatten it out so it's a platform. I'm just saying there's just more thoughtfulness there.
Yes.
You're right.
Okay, I
It's a
agree with
great
you.
Flex. I'm
I see what you're saying.
particularly from this perspective of can we be clever with this? Because Kitty Pryde could have some really clever fight scenes.
Knock people out with just putting her hand through somebody.
Seriously,
Can you imagine her like
kill somebody. I'm serious. Put your hand in there. Boom. Squeeze their heart, and they're dead. And then all of a sudden, Wolverine's like, "Whoa!"
you can't
Fear her.
you can't block a kick from her at
No.
all because you're gonna go to
No.
block it and she's gonna phase through and then hit you in your chest or
And she
something.
should be having like 2 or 3 people coming at her at once and like welcoming it, and they come at her and she just phases. They hit each other, and then she takes them all out. Like there's endless
Like
opportunities there.
it was enjoyable watching her fall through the ground a little bit and then come back up and I was gonna be like, never
do
again.
that again.
Like that was great. From Iceman, in that scenario, Iceman should have been doing the bridge thing.
Yes.
Never got that.
No, do the bridge thing. Like cover your fist with ice and just boom, boom, boom,
Right.
bash people. Yeah.
And you can make the same argument with Angel as well.
Mm,
Angel gets
different.
introduced, and you think he's going to be more significant than he is, and he just comes back to save his dad. And it feels like they definitely cut stuff out,
Oh my gosh.
right? Like it's stuff like that where you're like, you cut things out for sure.
Yes.
And he's one of those characters that definitely lost time in that cut for sure.
Yes. Why isn't he a part of the final battle? Why isn't he?
Especially
Aside
when,
from saving his dad from Porcupine.
well, especially when you introduce him and he's like the opening scene in
Yep.
the movie. You're like, oh, Angel's going to have a very significant
Yep.
role. And then he like is like, no, Dad,
Right.
I don't want this anymore.
Right.
You wanted this. And he leaves and he goes to the X-Men.
And Ben Foster is a phenomenal actor, by the way. The guy who plays
Oh, yeah.
Angel, he's terrific. So you've got a dude that's going to give you some quality screen time. And you're just not giving it to him, aside from a couple brief moments. What a bummer.
He should have been in that final fight. He
Yes.
should have been looking for his dad earlier than that.
Also true.
Like, don't get me wrong. The save is perfect for him, but he
Yep.
should have been in the fight helping out more.
Right. And then
And then-
peel off to go help them.
Right? His dad might go watch it, might see him a little bit and be like, oh, I'm the problem.
Mhm.
And then like, I
Mhm.
deserve this while he's falling off and then get saved.
Yeah, exactly. The last gripe that I have is Wolverine's fight in the woods. Listen, give Wolverine more to fight against than one mutant that has some kind of ability to go up against. The rest of the mutants are just there with baseball bats,
That was a-
shotguns, or nothing.
That was an odd choice.
And
Like, they show the one with super hearing. It's like, oh, we gotta go. Which is fine, whatever. But like, I
but
agree
that's
with
all
you.
you got. All you can do is hear him. Okay,
Like, don't get me wrong, Spike Guy was cool.
Spike. Right.
That was
Give us
awesome.
more of that.
But you
more
couldn't-
than just the one Spike guy.
Right. But then the other ones that you use as like,
Guy's got an
People
aluminum bat.
protecting-
He's going to slow pitch softball league with the rest of the Brotherhood of Mutants.
it would be great if he had like maybe flame powers like Pyro. He just sets the bat on fire. Or, you
Yes.
know, he can turn the bat into rubber or I don't know, do something with it. Why do you have a bat? No, just because I like baseball.
Yeah, give Wolverine something great to fight against in that scene. Not just one guy. And the one guy made it entertaining. I just wanted more.
I do like how Magneto handles Wolverine as well.
Oh my god!
Like he just gets straight to it.
right.
And I enjoy that very much.
It's so great.
And
Like,
that's how it should be.
nope, you're not going to help Gene out, and just bashes him
100%
through the woods.
how that should be.
Yes.
Hands down.
Yeah.
So-
It's game over every time.
Oh, yeah.
Wolverine never wins. No. Any other takeaways on X3,
No.
Riley, for you?
No.
Well, I'm encouraged that you had such a positive experience with it. It's not terrible. It's not. For me, it's by no means great, but for someone that's going to say, hey, I really enjoyed it, awesome. Like, I'm not going to say, hey, you shouldn't. No, if you enjoy it, good. Enjoy it. For me, there's just too many missed opportunities to get more excited about it.
And
But it makes me, here's what it does, okay? It makes me hopeful. I am waiting for like 3 or 4 great X-Men movies in a row,
oh yeah.
okay? Makes me hopeful that that can still happen in the coming years because it's still available. The opportunity is still out there.
Correct. And I think this trilogy alone shows you the problem that comes with the X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
And that problem is character balance because there's
Yep.
so many good characters
Yep.
that you're going to get to the point where you're going to run out of time on somebody, right? So maybe that first X-Men movie, we get the original 5. We get Beast
Mhm.
before he goes blue again. We get Iceman.
Yep.
We get, the original 5. And that's how it starts. And then you can go out and expand and recruit and whatever, yada, yada, yada.
Yep.
But like, I don't know. That's definitely what's shown. X2 does a really good job at it. It seems like Singer was figuring it out,
Mm-hmm.
and then it kind of regresses because he leaves.
Yeah.
I don't think
That's a production problem.
Correct.
Yeah.
Again, that's just the struggle with these, I think, personally. So
I do think that the last note I would have, based on what you said there, I think it's going to be really important for the good of these X-Men movies that are eventually going to come, that you have the same director, or maybe it's a partnership of a couple people directing these movies, but I think it needs to be the same individuals throughout the 3 or 4 movies that you do, right? Because you saw what like James Gunn did with Guardians of the Galaxy. Those movies aren't going to be as good if you've got other directors coming in to tell a story with those characters.
I agree.
But I think if you can find that right fit that person is going to be able to just shepherd those characters' story arcs so well. They've got such a better chance at balancing that challenge with the ensemble.
I agree.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what comes. Cool. It's fun to get through the original X-Men trilogy, and of course we'll progress forward. But great to recap those. Riles, my sweet beans, it's time for another classic JP and the Beans top 5. Now, this top 5. Well, I should let you introduce this topic. I'm sorry. You go.
You're good. So we watched the X-Men trilogy, the original first trilogy.
Yep.
And we kind of talk about it a little bit in this, but we're doing top 5 changes we'd make if we were in charge of the original X-Men trilogy.
Right.
So, yeah. Do you want to start?
I would love to go first. Let's do it. Okay. My first thing that I would change in this trilogy, costumes. Give me comic accurate costumes from the get-go. None of the leather suits. Suit them all up in what you'd expect to see in the comics. That's the first thing I would change. That just looks... I understand why they did what they did, but I still don't agree with it. Give me the comics.
Okay. So...
That's my number 5.
Spoiler alert. 5, 4, and 3 are all very character specific. Okay. And then after that, I get into more generic.
Okay.
So my number 5 is Nightcrawler.
Mm-hmm.
Nightcrawler, done super well. And X2, no reason why he's out of X3. They don't even explain it. It doesn't make sense. He's arguably one of my favorite X-Men of all time.
He's phenomenal.
And I think he would have been a nice grounding force for this iteration of the X-Men.
Agreed.
So that's my number 5. Now, my number 4, I've already griped about him in this episode. It's Juggernaut by a mile and a half. Juggernaut got done dirty. Okay, now, if we were doing Wolverine, X-Men Origins, I would say Deadpool. Because that's another guy who got even done dirtier.
Worse.
So,
worse. Oh.
And they both get redeemed in Deadpool 2. But my point is, Juggernaut, number 4.
Yeah.
That's my point.
I love that. My number 4, this is props to you here, but I couldn't stop not hearing it in X3. The accents. Where are they?
Yeah.
They can't all be American. I want Storm with the African accent. I want Colossus with the Russian accent. I mean, good grief, you give Professor Xavier, who's supposedly from New York, a British accent, so you can pick an accent. It can be done.
Oddly, it works
better
for Professor X.
Right.
It oddly does work for him.
Well, and you mentioned Nightcrawler, like he has a German accent. And listen, it just fits so well with these characters because they're a diverse bunch, right? They're not all from the same neck of the woods, but give Rogue the Bayou accent. So the accents are my number 4. Give me those accents. My number 3, here's a really kind of out of left field one, okay? I want, in each of these movies, I want one hero to die. In each movie.
Okay.
Right?
Bummer.
Right. Very much so. I want one hero to die in each movie, and none of the villains to die. I just want a hero to die in each movie. Just really lean into the tragic aspect. But only one. So we're not getting carried away here, but there's always one hero that dies.
Mr. Burns.
Mr. Bummer himself.
Okay. Is it my number 3 now?
It's your turn. Yeah.
Okay, my number 3.
Your number 3 and 2.
We go Cyclops.
Yep.
Dirty. Done dirty.
Yep.
Again, these first 3, I was like, they got to be restated on how devastating this is. Cyclops gets done so dirty.
Right.
Okay. My number 2 kind of plays off yours a little, but not a lot. So I wanted more fleshed out villains.
Yeah.
Because I think this is where this movie lacked. And we talked about this in the first X-Men movie when we talked about that 2 pods ago.
Right.
And in this one, same struggle, is you get all these really cool villains. You get Sabretooth, you get Code, you get Juggernaut, you get, make the argument for Callisto, Multiple Man, Jamie Madrox. Like, all of these characters are fantastic, have personalities, and then they just, nothing. I wanted to come out of that wanting more Juggernaut.
Yeah.
instead of less.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't want to see that.
But you
version
don't
yet.
want more of that. Yeah.
Right.
Totally agree.
So that was my number 2 because again, Magneto done perfect. He should be the main villain in this trilogy by far, by a mile. Stryker, fantastic. When they had one main villain, fantastic.
Correct.
But they go and revert all of these main villain caliber X-Men villains, and they revert them to like sidekicks, henchmen.
Right.
So that's my number 2.
Yeah, they neuter him way too much. My number 2 calls back to your number 5, Nightcrawler. I just want him in every movie.
Yep.
Like, he just needs to be in every movie.
He needs to be a staple.
Yeah.
That was the one they did right, even accent-wise.
Yes.
They nailed. He's perfect.
The look is great. It's a little different from the comics, but with like the brands on his body, but it still like fits the character. The accent is great. The power set is terrific. Like it's great. My number 1, I don't want the Phoenix ever in this trilogy. Ever.
I agree.
I just don't. Like for me, it is it's the least compelling rope that the X-Men go to. It's like just a matter of time of when is the Phoenix going to show up? Like I'm just personally not a huge fan of interpersonal, like Civil War type conflict. Give me the good guys against the bad guys. I don't want the good guys literally fighting against each other.
Oddly enough, the Phoenix needed to be its own trilogy.
Sure.
If you want to make if you were to make Jean Grey the main focus of your main trilogy, that's what you do. Right. So
that's my number 1. Just no Phoenix, please.
My number 1 is your number 3 or 4 with accents.
Yes.
Dude, why does Colossus sound like he's from Nebraska? Okay? Why? On top of that, why on God's green earth were they like, hey, you know what would be great is if Juggernaut was Australian? Wrap your head around that. Did you think about that one? Because that one threw me for a loop.
It's just I don't even know what his accent.
It sounded Australian.
Right.
I don't think he's supposed to have one because he's Charles's half brother. He should probably also have a New York accent.
Here's what's so odd. Okay. You have all these individuals that are cast in these roles that, as far as I know, speak with their natural accent. Then you have Hugh Jackman, who's Australian, speaking in American.
And you're like, you have to be American.
Right. So you made an effort with Hugh. You're like, all right, so you're Australian? Well, not in this role. Break out the American accent.
It's super odd.
Well, it's really weird.
It's super odd. And
really weird.
He shouldn't even be American. It should be Canadian.
I know.
It should be Canadian.
It's just, which I don't even know what a Canadian accent is other than,
to be fair, it would be weird for Wolverine to have a Canadian accent.
It would be. But
hey there, buddy guy. I just stabbed you there, right there in the chest there, eh?
Sorry there.
Oh there, buddy. What are you doing there, bub?
But you have like the effort made by that one actor.
Right.
You can't do it with the rest?
Well, it's just like there's no like, because you would think, okay, our main X-Men need to be super accurate, right? Wolverine. He's easily the most popular X-Men. Has to be American accent, right? Storm. Not the African accent? One of the most famous, iconic X-Men. And you're like, no to the African accent? It adds to her. She is the goddess of the storm for a reason, people.
The Russian? Nope. No.
Yeah, that guy's whole thing. I'm from Russia.
Holy buckets.
And instead it's, hey, I chuck corn in Nebraska.
Seriously. Come on, bud.
I literally thought defensive lineman.
Yes.
Yes. You know what I mean? Yeah. So to have all that,
it's an easy thing.
It's
so accessible, right? It's not like we have to cast someone else. Like, no, you hire an accent coach. And you train for it.
So inconsistent across the board, where it is mind-boggling. And you know who the other accent they actually did get right? Moira McTaggart, the Scottish chick,
right?
Who shows up for one shot on the TV, and the other shot is a terrible end credit scene that makes zero sense. That should have been also on our beef list. That was terrible. It didn't even make sense.
I was trying to forget it.
Charles Xavier's essence just comes into a comatose man. Anyways, besides the point, That could be another 20-minute conversation.
Gosh.
Regardless,
Yep.
it's bad.
Yes.
And that needs to be nipped in the bud. And Ryan is the key. He's done it so far so well.
Mm-hmm. It'll be fascinating to see what elements, and we'll get into this in future pods as we get closer to Dear Sweet July. But it's going to be fascinating to see what elements of this trilogy get called back to in Deadpool Wolverine.
You want to know what I think would actually be a nice personal touch?
Mm-hmm.
Is if the MCU just made Storm Wakandan.
Mm-hmm.
She's not Wakandan. She's just from Africa.
Yeah.
But I think that would just add a little oh, we've already established Wakanda.
Right.
That'd be great for her character. Right. Anyways.
Yeah. Totally agree. Riles, well done. Well done. Anything else before you take us home, my friend?
That's it.
Shit.
Yeah.
Good work.
Subscribe, do whatever. I don't care. On that note, yes, thank you for being here. Godspeed.
Peace.